King James. Anyone who listens to my teachings and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Through the rain comes in, oh, though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against the house, it will collapse with a mighty crash.
Again, it just talks about reason. Again, Jesus is talking about um, listening and as you say, humbling ourselves, listening and applying these things. And by doing that, then we're building that foundation. We're building that. We're preparing for the outcome, if I want to put it that way. Um, and in their lives, as you were saying, the veil, the seeing through the veil or removing of the veil. Okay, because again, as we say, some people see through the veil, and by looking through the veil, they begin to have this distortion. They lack clarity. So some of it seems okay, some of it not. But the point is that removal of that veil, in the removal of that veil, in what you're saying is to see. I want to look at it, phrase it this way: to see the world as it is, and then use God's view, or see the world through God's eye rather than through your eye. Because as we look at as you just said, as we look at the world and we look at the behavior of people, we have to say, no, this is not normal. No, this is not right. No, this is not how we should behave and act. So I cannot support and justify it. And in their lives, sometimes for me, where people are not seeing the world through Jehovah's eyes. In fact, in our lesson the other day, that point was made, is that if we can look at the things in the world, what's happening in the world, not through the filters that we have been given or created, but through that internal lens, our heart. You said it a minute ago, God in our heart. So then we begin to look at the world through our heart, through the God's view through our heart. And again, we begin to then discern. We begin to truly look for, to understand, but look for the meaning, God's meaning. What is, as you said earlier, and I shared that the other day in our meeting, is that what is this meaning for us? What does this moment, this event mean for us? And I use the us because you said something earlier, is it's in the separation that we get lost. It's in the disconnect that we get lost. And again, it's in that disconnect that starts with God that we get lost. So the point I'm driving there is that it's in that oneness with God, that unity in thought with God. Then we, as we mentioned, people benefit from that because now we see that same connection with them. We see that oneness. And in fact, that's one of the things that the Bible talks about. There should be no division among you. You should have that common oneness in thought. And I use that oneness in thought and in their lives where our our journey, we talked about this a lot, our journey is to the way. Again, the pathways there may differ. The pathway may not be a perfect straight shot. I like to talk about Christian transition as as a transition, and sometimes that transition has circular motion. I'm doing well, I fall back, but it's important that we make a commitment to the journey towards that final destination. I think sometimes people give up, and they give up because they give in to human pressures rather than humbling themselves to God.
Yeah, I think what for me this building on a solid foundation is um, this is karma, and Jesus basically says here that listen, if you take what it is that I'm saying, if you use God's reasoning as sort of the foundation of whatever it is that you're speaking and doing and whatever, then you'll be able to stand strong. But if you don't, then you'll easily be blown over, right? And so here again is when we talk about sort of prophecy, then we're talking about this karma for me, that it is prophetic. That if you don't use God's reasoning, you're going to be blown over. So when you're seeing people get blown over, when you're seeing them not being able to stand strong in their conviction of who they are, then you recognize their lack of God's reasoning. Nothing more, nothing less than that. And something you said was is that you see people. For me, in this same analogy, right? You see people being blown over, and you're like, oh, they not with God, and so on and so forth, and so we just sort of leave them. But for me, it's like to just recognize, right, to have the love to just see somebody who's not moored in God's reason, to say it's like, well, it's because you're not moored in God's reasoning. That's why you're getting what you're getting. You're moored in your reasoning. And now this is what you're getting, what you're getting. Now, I can't say that to somebody. What I always have to do as teacher, again, because God has put that person in front of me for a reason, to see them failing, to see them whatever. And it takes me having to sit back and humble myself and say, God, why have you put this person in front of me? And God's response, in the sense, not in the literal way, but in the sense of what comes up, is that, well, here's a reminder of what you've also went through, what you've ways that you've fallen, and so on and so forth. So here I want to remind you of said thing, and then be able to use that failing of yours to help somebody else. And now deepen my understanding in your own heart. So I'm always student. I don't walk in as teacher. God has said teacher, if you will. I walk in as said student. And in that way, then I have to humble myself and share with the person how I too have burned my hand, how I too have become unmoored and been blown over, and what now having this reasoning and whatever has shown me to be able to make me a more solid individual in at least of where I am now. Not that I am whole solid or that I am Jesus, but that this way has proven itself to where I cannot get blown over if I have my bhakti or my devotion. So here again, where Krishna teaches Arjuna, again, just referencing the Bhagavad Gita, is this bhakti, this devotion that you have to have to this way. Is in that devotion and that bhakti that when we filter whatever we're going through that lens of love of what we talked about before, that I actually get to see the lesson that God has put before me. But we have to have that sort of commitment to what is this way. But for those who don't have a way, they have a religion, And they've got their books and they wonder why they keep getting blown over. It's like, oh, because I'm not being as obedient as I need to the teacher, to the preacher, not to God.
It's yeah,